morning and welcome to the second day of Hindustan Times' Tourism Conclave. The theme of this year is Rethinking Tourism for the Future, which is sustainability, digital transition, and greener tourism system at grassroots and at the global level. I'm Divya Chandrababu, and we are pleased to start our first session of the day with Mr. Sandeep Nanduri, Managing Director of Tamil Nadu's Tourism Development Corporation. Welcome, sir. I'd like to start by
Uh,
asking you, what is the Tamil Nadu government doing to promote green tourism?
Good morning, and thank you for having me here as part of this summit and conclave. Tamil Nadu Tourism is doing various activities to promote tourism in the last 1 year, and especially a lot of importance has been given to sustainable tourism also. We are majorly partnering with the forest departments to promote sustainable activities, especially in the lesser known destinations. We are promoting camping, and also eco-friendly trek activities in various forest areas and reserve forests which are under control of forest. We are identifying the local communities who will be made responsible for organizing these particular tools, and also involving all the local stakeholders in a big way, because ultimately sustainable tourism talks about developing tourism in a sustainable way. So unless you involve all the local people and all the local stakeholders and the communities, we can't make that entire experience sustainable experience. In order to decongest the entire experience in mass tourist places, for example, if you see Kodaikanal or if you see Ooty, there's a lot of mass tourism happening. So what we are doing is we are identifying lesser known destinations in these locations. For example, in Kodaikanal, if you see, there's a location called Manavalu, which is just around half an hour drive from there, which is really beautiful, which is really pristine. So we are going to promote these destinations as the next big tourist destinations in a very eco-friendly and sustainable way. So in these destinations, we limit the number of tourists, we limit the number of activities that is happening. So entire development can be very sustainable. So similar exercise is being taken up at all the destinations which are already full, or in terms of mass inbound tourism, it is very high. So we are trying to decongest them and develop the lesser known destinations. We are also looking at a lot of coastal destinations and get blue flag certification, which is again a sustainable certificate which shows the activities we are being taken to promote sustainable tourism. Already Kovalam is one such, and we have identified a couple of beaches in the entire stretch, and we are taking all steps to promote these particular locations also. We are promoting lesser known hill stations and lesser known destinations so that the local communities there also reap the benefits of tourism. As you know, tourism is one of the biggest employment generator, and these particular communities, especially in faraway locations, do not have much of employment opportunities. So by promoting tourism at such places and involving the local communities, definitely the entire ecosystem will benefit, and these people will also get a lot of employment opportunities. We're also trying to promote the products which are locally manufactured, and set up souvenir shops, and then try to sell these particular products in this location so that people also benefit. Whoever are there will benefit in a big way. We're also promoting solar tourism, solar based power generation in all our hotels and properties, especially wherever the regular electricity is a problem, so that the entire experience will be sustainable. And all the new camping resorts which are going to come up will be completely developed in a sustainable way. We are trying to use the locally available raw material, the local manpower, the local technology know-how, everything, so that the entire experience will be sustainable, and we'll also not go, we are going to be eco-friendly in a proper way, and not bring out any outside material and outside harmful things into the environment. And all the locations we want to make them plastic free, especially the tourist destinations. So step by step, we are ensuring plastic ban, and checking all the tourists, especially big destinations like Ooty and Kodaikanal, implementing in a very strict way. Even plastic bottles are also not allowed in these destinations. So various steps are already being taken by the government, and the government is very particular in promoting sustainable tourism in Tamil Nadu.
All right. And I also noticed that there has been a lot of focus on enhancing our beaches. It looks like we want to take advantage of our coastline. The government is eyeing blue tags for beaches, especially with projects like Singara Chennai 2.0, which is looking at beach beautifications. And there is a lot of also effort in terms of developing sports in the state. The chief minister has said that he would like to introduce more beach games. So, how do you see these two link with tourism as well, sir? Could you expand a little more on how we are enhancing our coast for tourism, and also how sports may play a part in terms of improving our tourism as well?
So Tamil Nadu, if you see, is one of the states which has the longest coastlines, almost 1,100 kilometers long coastline. But if you see Tamil Nadu is known mostly for its temple tourism and its pilgrimage tourism. So not many are aware that we also have a very long and beautiful coastline which can be promoted. So the last 1 year, we have been very consciously promoting our beach tourism and also our coastal destinations. As you have rightly pointed out, Kovalam Blue Flag Beach. Kovalam is a beach destination very close to Mahabalipuram, and it is the only beach in Tamil Nadu to get its Blue Flag certification. So Kovalam Beach is being promoted as a Blue Flag certified beach, and Kovalam is also well known for its adventure activities, especially water-based adventure activities like surfing, even dolphin watching can be done from there. So a lot of surfers, it's a surfers haven, you can say. The international surf festival happens there. Lot of international events regarding surfing happens there. So not only Kovalam near Mahabalipuram, but the entire coastal stretch. If you look at Rameshwaram, if you look at Toothukudi, if you look at Kanyakumari, we have wonderful pristine beaches. Especially the stretch in Rameshwaram where there are some beaches like Tiruppanuvalsai, and other beaches where the water is so clear, so crystal clear. So it is very ideal for all kind of beach-related adventure activities, snorkeling, scuba diving, and all these activities are happening. But not many are aware that Tamil Nadu's coastal region offers all these kind of activities. So we have been very consciously promoting our coastal destinations in a big way. We have been investing a lot of money in promoting adventure activities, and we are coming up with new sites to promote camping and adventure activities. I was mentioning in the earlier question also. Pirappan Valse in Rameshwaram is a destination where Tamil Nadu Tourism Development Corporation is setting up a camping site and water activity site right on the beach. So these kind of activities, similarly in Mahabalipuram, Mudaliyakuppam is an island where we are promoting water sports and also camping on an island. It's very close to Chennai again. So we have already identified certain destinations which are good for adventure activities, which are some destinations which are good for general beach development activities, and already Blue Flag is certified. And this year in the announcement, we have also identified Thoothukkudi's beaches to be developed as a good recreational space for the people there, and also promote it along with adventure activities. So this is a plan for us to promote all the well-known or lesser-known beach locations and promote Tamil Nadu as a proper beach destination.
Excellent. Are there any other initiatives that the tourism development has in its agenda, sir?
So in the last 1 year, if you see, Tamil Nadu tourism has done so many initiatives. Especially, we are promoting Tamil Nadu as a destination, not only as I was mentioning, not only known for temple tourism and the heritage tourism, but also all kind of adventure activities and various kind of tourism segments. We are well known for coastal tourism. We are well known for plantation tourism, wellness tourism, medical tourism. At the same time, we have very good food cuisine. We have so the name, the segment of the tourism, we have it in Tamil Nadu. So last 1 year, what we have been doing is we are organizing big events like Balloon Festival is a well-known event which we organize every year in Pollachi. Last year, because of COVID, we are not able to do it. This year, we have organized for the first time Tamil Nadu International Kite Festival in Mahabalipuram. So which has been a very big hit, and lakhs of people have come and visited and enjoyed the international kite show. We want to make this as an annual event. Similarly, we are promoting Tamil Nadu as a bikers and adventure activity destination. We have some excellent hill stations which are every bikers and every driver's dream. For example, Koli Hills is a lesser-known destination with 70 hairpin bends, which offers amazing views for the riders and bikers to go around and to enjoy the entire drive. So these destinations are being promoted as a bikers destinations and bikers holiday destination in the south. We are planning to organize every year in Kolli Hills a bikers retreat where we invite top bikers and make them stay there and promote the particular destination. Similarly, Javadu Hills, Yerkad, Yelagiri, and all the other Pollachi, Valparai. We want to promote all these destinations as a bikers destination. We are also promoting adventure tourism in a big way. This is another key initiative, both in hill stations and also on the dam sites and reservoirs. Last year, we have selected around 9 locations. If you see places like Pundi, Chitta Dam in Kanyakumari, then we have selected Javadu Hills, Yerkad, Ooty Boat House, Ooty Lake. So all these destinations, all these places which are very scenic, very picturesque, at the same time also offers excellent avenues for adventure tourism and camping have been selected, and we are promoting adventure and camping in a very big way. We are also promoting technology-based initiatives. For example, our Tiruvallu statue in Kanyakumari and Mahabalipuram Arjuna's Penance. We are going to develop laser 3D mapping, sound and light show at both these locations. Already it's been tendered out, and very soon the installation will also be done. So, which is the state-of-the-art laser-based sound and light show, which people will really enjoy. At the same time, thanks to COVID, since not many were traveling, we have promoted artificial AR and VR-based technology in a big way. We have published AR-based pamphlets. Virtual reality tools have been published, have been promoted in big way. Even on our website, we have published VR tours which anybody can enjoy with a 3D goggles right from their home. They can enjoy the entire destination. So such initiatives are also being taken by us. What government has done after they have come is, and there's one point about the safety and security of the tourists. So we are coming up with a lot of guidelines to promote safety and security. There are a lot of camping operators, there are a lot of caravan operators, bread and breakfast establishment, adventure operators coming up in the state. So in order to regulate their activities, in order to create some kind of base for their registration, so we have come up with guidelines covering all these activities: the camping, the bread and breakfast and homestay establishment, adventure activities, and also camping and caravan parks. Caravan operators and caravan parks are also covered under this particular guidelines. So we have been covering a wide range of activities, promoting newer destinations, lesser known destination, new avenues of tourism we have been promoting. We are also organizing big events to attract tourists. Apart from the well-known dance festival and Namma Tirvila, all the other things which I have pointed out also been done. We have been very aggressive on social media marketing and digital marketing in a big way in the last 1 year. We have seen. If you have seen the growth of Tamil Nadu in the last 1 year, you see our social media is suddenly very active with a lot of activities happening. Especially if you see uh, we have made 75 videos to commemorate Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, small videos about various destinations, and that we are aggressively pushing. We are now recently tied up with Times Now. We have come up with a 6-part series with Milind Soman as a host to cover all the lesser known destinations. Like this, we are partnering with various media organizations, various digital channels to promote Tamil Nadu as a destination, both inside the country and also outside the country. We are also participating in many national and international travel marts to promote Tamil Nadu as a destination which offers everything.
All right, sir. So, lastly, Mr. Nanduri, what is the present percentage of the state's revenue which comes from tourism? And now, with all these various initiatives that you've told me, how do you see it growing as well?
See, we can't see if you look at tourism as a sector is a very big sector. It encompasses a lot of service sectors inside it. Tourism includes the hotel industry, it includes the travel industry, it includes the service industry. So it's a very big sector, and roughly, if you see the contribution of tourism, the state is varies around 7 to 8% of the state's GDP. So ours also will be somewhere around that. But thanks to our honorable CM's initiatives in the last 1 year, we have seen, I'm sure you must have seen the World Chess Olympiad, the 44th Chess Olympiad being organized in a very grand way, and almost 183 countries have participated. And due to this promotion, aggressive promotion, a lot of foreign tourists will now start coming into Tamil Nadu from all these countries. So this number is sure to go up this particular year, and we are expecting a lot of foreign tourist arrivals. As I mentioned initially, only we are number 2 in foreign tourist arrivals. Number 1 or number 2, it keeps changing every year, but we have been consistently ranked in the top 1 or 2. So with all these initiatives, I'm sure this number will definitely go up.
Thank you for joining us, Mr. Nanduri, and all the best to the Tamil Nadu Tourism Department. With that, we come to the end of this session.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Michko and I head public policy for Airbnb in India, Southeast Asia, Hong Kong and Taiwan, and I would like to start off by thanking the Hindustan Times for inviting me here today. Today I want to talk about the rise of community travel and the changing travel preferences that Airbnb is observing. The world as we know it has changed immeasurably in the past few years. The pandemic has changed travel and tourism, and I believe that many of the shifts and trends we witnessed during the pandemic are enduring. Perhaps the most significant trend to emerge is that an increasing number of people are seeking to blend life and work with travel. Remote and hybrid work models mean that people no longer need to be in an office every day. And since you now have the flexibility of working from anywhere, why not replace your video conference background with a real-life mountain or river or valley? Or perhaps work from a place where as soon as you switch off your laptop, you can switch instantly to vacation mode. And for me, that means the beach. This mix of business and leisure, or bleisure as some call it, is becoming more and more accessible for Indians, allowing them to work from anywhere and ultimately live anywhere. At the same time, there has been a shift towards lesser-known destinations, and this, combined with the rise in hosting-driven entrepreneurship in remote locations, has provided the wind beneath the sails for community-minded travel. So what do we mean by community-minded travel? Community-minded travel provides travelers with a chance to really connect with local cultures and lifestyles. With travelers sharing the homes and neighborhoods of locals, they get to enjoy a truly authentic and a unique experience. These stays and experiences are usually hosted and are managed by the local communities, which helps generate direct economic benefits and helps foster more responsible travel that benefits both local businesses and jobs. These local entrepreneurs are now viewing travel as a way to help connect people to their communities and showcase their region. This presents a unique opportunity for the revival of local economies around the world following the pandemic and will allow the forging of authentic connections between travelers and communities. The fundamental shifts we're seeing, such as the blurring lines between travel and living, are providing a real boost to community travel and are creating more opportunities for micro-entrepreneurship. Late last year, Airbnb commissioned a research and analysis report by Economist Impact across 9 countries in the Asia-Pacific, including in India, and found that, firstly, an overwhelming 79% of Indian travelers want to travel in ways that positively benefit local communities, both economically and socially. Secondly, we found that more than 2/3 of the Indian respondents said that it's important to them that they're creating a positive impact for the locals. And finally, more than 60% of people in India are conscious that communities are in need of economic recovery and will factor this into where they travel and how they spend their money. The rise of community travel is increasingly presenting an opportunity for communities to not only grow their local economies off the back of the travel rebound, but also welcome an evolving form of empowering win-win tourism that emphasizes genuine connections. In addition to empowering locals, this type of travel allows them to work as hosts, work as guides, restaurateurs, cleaners, hospitality staff, and to pursue other forms of employment opportunity in tourism. An example of this is an ongoing collaboration that Airbnb has with the Self-Employed Women's Association, or SEWA, in India. SEWA is an organization representing 1.5 million self-employed women living largely in India's rural areas. Through our partnership, we help to empower women by expanding livelihood opportunities for them as well as their families. By sharing their homes on Airbnb, we help SEWA members to create new livelihoods. And through home sharing, the initiative also promotes tourism in parts of India that have not traditionally benefited from tourism and hospitality. We've also observed that across the country, travelers are more and more willing to step off the beaten path and are actively working to build a more resilient and diversified local economy through tourism. The gradual return of cross-border travel will likely have emerging destinations thinking more about how they can grab a slice of the international tourism pie. The way that people travel internationally is also changing and creating new opportunities for locals. According to research commissioned by Airbnb and undertaken by YouGov, there is a huge amount of enthusiasm amongst many travelers for international travel. and people in many countries are more open to traveling internationally during off-peak times of the year than they were before the pandemic. The survey also showed that many travelers were more open to the idea of combining work and travel while they were traveling abroad. This heightened focus amongst both travelers and the local community on flexibility and fresh opportunities has led to a dispersal of travel beyond traditionally popular tourist destinations. This is also something that Airbnb has been supporting through the rollout of innovative new search tools, such as categories and the I'm Flexible button, to actively encourage travelers to seek inspiration off the beaten path. We also see that people are embracing rural and regional destinations. During the pandemic, millions of people were able to connect with new communities and discover hidden gems, as remote work and increased flexibility became the norm. According to a recent Airbnb report, the number of non-urban nights booked across countries in the Asia-Pacific region has increased significantly. In India, Airbnb recorded an increase of about 140% in non-urban nights booked in the second quarter of 2022 compared with the same period in 2019. In light of rising living costs, that's presenting new opportunities for locals. Data from Airbnb also shows that a number of destinations outside major cities have seen a significant increase in searches in the second quarter of this year, providing more locals with new opportunities to earn income by hosting. In India, Haldwani in Uttarakhand recorded a growth of about 330% during this period. Jibi in Himachal Pradesh showed more than 270% growth, and finally, Burr in Himachal Pradesh and Vakala in Kerala both recorded more than 240% growth. With work from home transforming into work from anywhere, staycations and off-the-beaten-path destinations are becoming increasingly popular. Another notable trend we're witnessing is that travelers are also looking to stay longer, allowing them to foster deeper connections with locals and to help contribute even more greatly to economic growth. On Airbnb, we've seen non-urban nights booked for long-term stays, which we define as stays of more than 28 nights, increase dramatically for a number of countries and regions in the Asia-Pacific. In particular, this growth was more than double for India when comparing the second quarter of this year with the pre-pandemic second quarter of 2019. Some popular destinations in India outside of major cities for long-term stays in the second quarter of this year were Arambol, Nagar, Kulu, Agonda, and Almora. With the lines between travel and living continuing to blur, it is increasingly vital that everyone works together collaboratively to help ensure that the resulting economic opportunities are spread more equitably than in the past. We all need to work together to better distribute the benefits of tourism and to create an inclusive vision for the sector that serves all stakeholders. The rise of conscious travelers in India provides an opportunity to rebuild tourism in a holistic and sustainable manner. And this is an unprecedented window of opportunity for all stakeholders involved in the industry to come together to drive responsible and regenerative tourism. We at Airbnb remain very committed to continuing to work with local governments and communities to grow high-quality, sustainable tourism and to support micro-entrepreneurship and ensure more communities can reap the benefits of tourism dispersal. And with that, I thank you and appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all today. Goodbye.
Hello everyone, I'm Sadia Akhtar, and today for this session we have with us Mr. Rakesh Mathur, who is the founding member and honorary president of the Responsible Tourism Society of India. Welcome, Mr. Mathur.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Pleased
to begin
meet you.
with, likewise, sir. To begin with, could you possibly give us an overview of what sustainable tourism is? Because a lot of the time people tend to conflate sustainable tourism with responsible tourism, eco-tourism. A quick overview would really help us.
All right. I think to give you a background, the easiest way to explain is to go back to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, which have been set by the United Nations and which have been adopted by almost all countries. So that is what sustainable tourism has to fit into the entire complex gamut of all these 17 goals which have been set. So this explains the difference between ecotourism and sustainable tourism. When you use the word ecotourism, the mental image that it brings to your mind is basically a natural environment, or you are in a jungle, or you are in the riverside, or in a lake, etc., etc. But that is not what sustainable tourism is about. Sustainable tourism is a more holistic way of looking at things. I mean, apart from the fact that you have to minimize and control garbage and pollution and plastics, control energy and water consumption, etc., I think one of the key elements of sustainable tourism is to benefit local communities, local environment, local culture, and protect local communities and benefit them. Apart from that, benefit differently abled, promote local consumption of goods, uh, uh, create jobs in rural and local areas, create awareness amongst local service providers, tourists, future generations, etc., and protect women and children. And if you are aware, we came out with this concept of safe and honorable tourism, which was a special code of conduct evolved purely for that. Now, so there are three major aspects. Number one, it not only covers, environmentally sensitive areas where you go into wildlife areas and jungles and, mountains and so on. It covers city hotels also. It also covers transporters and travel agents, travel companies. It also covers ancillary services like tourism guides and tourism wardens and so on. So it's a very holistic way of looking at it. And that is the reason why we converted the name of the Ecotourism Society of India into the Responsible Tourism Society of India. Now, having said that, Sadia, there are some challenges that we face. And I think one of the key challenges in our country is that it is the travelers who are not sensitized, apart from the traveler, the travel service providers. So there has to be a very, very focused effort to sensitize and have an impact on travelers, people who are traveling, especially in the context of the way domestic tourism has come up. The second thing is there is a very, very great lack of knowledge amongst tourism service providers. They are not aware. They simply don't know what is good for them and what is bad for them and the country and the environment. The third thing here is that we acknowledge that hotels, by and large, especially city hotels, are high producers of affluents and pollution. There is no doubt about that. But another key aspect is that 70% of our tourism service providers are in the unorganized sector. For example, you have the dhabas, which are very popular. But if you go and see what is happening behind the dhaba, you'll understand what I'm talking about. They have no sensitivity at all. Or you have these guest houses which are dotting the countryside, whether you go to mountains or whether you go to small towns. These are the unorganized, uncontrolled sectors. Then our destinations are getting overcrowded. They are simply not made with the infrastructure they have to be able to take the kind of domestic tourist that is crowding into them. Another very important thing that we feel is that there is unsustainable architecture happening all over the countryside. I mean, when you say unsustainable architecture, forget about the visual beauty. You must have seen images of houses falling into the river when there's a flood, and those horrendous images that we've seen. Why is it? It is unsustainable architecture. And of course, one of our biggest problems is garbage segregation and disposal and overall management of garbage. So keeping all this in mind, we did come out with some key solutions. And I think I would like to sort of start by saying that one of the key issues we need to do is to educate the tourism service providers by conducting regular workshops. Now, this is something for which states have to budget. Tourism is a state subject, and the states must understand the importance of educating people, sensitizing people. They must put down in their annual budgeting a certain amount for, conducting regular workshops at the appropriate time. The second thing is that there should be a method of certification, tabulation, and inspection of local eateries and dhabas and guest houses. If we do not control them, I'm sorry, I don't think we'll be able to succeed much because they cater to a majority of our clientele. The third thing is we need to do carrying capacity studies, talking about the infrastructure in existing cities. Then we need to adopt an environment charter, which has already been formulated by us. And this environment charter is basically for the hotel and resorts sector. Everybody needs to have an environment charter that the employees must be committed to. They must take an oath to pursue that environment charter. We've started what I call a responsible tourism campaign, which is basically videos where people who are opinion makers, who are talking about why travelers should be responsible. I think we have circulated it on social media, but I think this should be adopted by the ministry and, it should be circulated on national media. That's our view. Then I think every destination must have a list of do's and don'ts and, visually display them at prominent places for tourists. And this must be controlled by a team of tourism wardens in high tourism density areas. I remember, growing up in Simla as a child, everywhere on the mall road, they used to write spitting is prohibited. And there was a fine at that time in the early 60s, it was 5 rupees, which was a very princely sum. So there has to be some kind of do's and don'ts enforced, implemented by the state management or the city management through a series of methods, signboards, and tourism wardens who make a fine on the spot. That's our view. That is the view that we are taking, because some form of enforcement in our country is very, very important. We should certainly ban some form of plastics which are in use in the industry, in packaging, in service, water bottles, etc. And we should, come out with substitutes. And I also believe that we should tax synthetic packaging and come out with substitution for synthetic packaging. We have evolved, as I told you earlier, the code of conduct for safe and honorable tourism. Just like you have in these coastal areas, you have a zone where you cannot construct. That a similar law should apply to all lakes, rivers, water bodies. There should be a no construction zone, and certainly sewage should not fall into the water, which is happening in the Dal Lake, if you are aware. And that has made the Dal Lake into a very, very serious situation. We should engage with local communities. We are engaging with local communities. We have also come out with what we call a policy of self-assessment. If you are a service provider, we'll give you an opportunity to assess yourself and see where you stand. And depending on that, we will give you a certificate, which you can then either upgrade yourself or utilize it for your marketing purposes. But the key thing that, the 3 key things that I feel here is, number one, there should definitely be education in schools on this subject. And I'm drawing a parallel between this and what we as children, we had a session, half-an-hour session on moral science. And it was nothing but teaching us how to be good citizens. And I think that is what is required to be done across all schools in India, because that is creating the human infrastructure. And if we don't do that, we'll be able to at least have a future enlightened generation. The second thing I do believe is that the sustainable tourism criteria of India must be implemented. We have already formulated, and it needs to be implemented. And the third thing, I think we should have, with government representation, something like a CEOs forum, where all CEOs of all major companies are brought together and made to commit themselves to implement these measures, whether they are CEOs of hotels, hotel companies or CEOs of travel companies or transport companies and things like that. So, these are the various things that we are doing. And, we've established a network with some key bodies, for example, the United Nations Environment Program, the Ministry of Tourism, and RTSOI. We have an understanding, an MOU, where we will work together on several of these initiatives. We are working closely with other bodies like WWF, South Asian Women's Network, INTAC, which is the Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage, Wildlife SOS, Indian Heritage Hotels Association, with MMT, Make My Trip, ITC, several other such large companies. And we've also appointed a series of conveners in some key states. So this is what we are doing in a nutshell, and this is what we are paying back, and we are all honorary people who are running this. We have our own jobs or businesses, but we are doing it as a payback to society. And I think it's a CSR activity where the whole industry, the whole travel, tourism, and even other affiliated industries must come and support us. So that is
right.
I wanted to share with you.
Yeah. So you mentioned the sustainable tourism criteria. So the ministry came up with this criteria in 2016, I believe. Do you think that this criteria maybe needs to be updated now? And as far as the implementation or enforcement on the ground is concerned, how are we placed as a country? Do you think we're doing enough?
The sustainable tourism criteria of India was formulated, and it was formulated in the year 2010, if I'm not wrong. I think it was adopted in 2016, but it was formulated with assistance from us and from some members, key associations of the travel trade. It was an adaptation of the GSTC to our environment. I do not deny that it needs to be updated, but that is not a very complicated process. All we need to do is to request our GSTC partners in India to help us do it. But you put so much effort when you see that yes, concrete steps are being taken. We will do it once the government is able to commit to us that yes, they will implement. And number two, sorry, your second question was, can you repeat
Are we
that?
doing enough as a country when it comes to enforcement of the criteria?
It has not yet been implemented, but I would like to add here that, the organized sector, the big companies, the big chains, whether you talk of, I don't want to take, ITC, Oberoi, Taj Group, the Marriotts, the Holiday Inns, all these companies are very committed to the environment. They are taking steps. We all have a long way to go, but most organized sector companies are very committed today. I can even talk of top travel companies, whether it is Creative Travel or whether it is Sita Travel or TCI. They're all very, very committed. The problem, Sadia, lies in, to a large extent, in the unorganized, uncontrolled sector, and in educating the tourists and the travel service providers. That is a fact. The organized sector is very, very aware now and doing all that they can within limitations. But it's the unorganized sector in our country and the tourist, the traveler, that needs more impact.
Right, and as you mentioned, that education has a very important role to play here.
Children's education, I think definitely in schools. Yeah.
Right, sir. So could you possibly give us examples of case studies, from the country where sustainable tourism practices have been implemented in a good manner, possibly, in example that we could look up to and
very simple, very, very simple. Next door, Bhutan. Next door, right next door to us. I've been several times to that country. Apart from, just looking after their tourism assets, apart from controlling numbers, which is, we talk about carrying capacity, they have very, very efficiently controlled numbers. Whether the world likes it or not is a different matter. They have and they have enforced certain numbers. They don't give visas beyond that. They have enforced a certain price. I'm not saying that we should enforce that kind of a pricing, because in our country we also have all kinds of tourists. We have those religious travelers who are not high budget travelers. So we cannot everywhere impose that. But to some extent, if you're asking for an example, Bhutan right next door, you should see the signs and signages they follow. You should see the enforcement. It is, if a Bhutanese goes to a Bhutanese government office in order to, any government, even if you're applying for a driving license, you have to go in local dress. You cannot go in a shirt and trouser. Now that is the extent to which, they are maintaining their culture and preserving their, every village in Bhutan, the center of activity is around a community center where, where good things are taught, where also you have a religious, you probably have a monastery or you have something like that. So I think there are lessons to be learned from the country of Bhutan. You don't have to go far.
Right, sir. So tourism was one of the worst affected sectors during the pandemic. Now, thankfully, things are improving. There is momentum on that front. So we're in a time of transition. How well is sustainable tourism placed in a time like this? Do you think that stakeholders are, giving adequate attention on this front, or is the focus more on just recovering the losses that they incurred during the pandemic?
If the pandemic has taught anything to anybody, it has been the lesson of sustainability. And I think the fallout of the pandemic has been a positive fallout. The desire to recoup losses has to be there. I think nobody can survive without at least recovering losses and breaking even and things like that. We can't run businesses without recouping losses. But the awareness now, vis-a-vis the awareness before the pandemic, I would say has seen phenomenal growth. There was a time before the pandemic when we would go and request people to support us, to become our members. And one could see that, the attitude was, what do we get out of it? By contributing to removal of garbage. Because people were looking at their own benefit, no? On the other hand, now there is an awakening that, yes, we need to contribute to such causes. So, why do we need such pandemics to teach us these lessons? There is a positive awakening, but we didn't need the pandemic. I am suggesting education, school education. I am suggesting the responsible traveler campaign. By creating this awareness and taking advantage of this change of mindset that has occurred. It's all about mindsets, if you really ask.
Right, sir. You also mentioned about, having tourist wardens, at sites, who could possibly find people and ensure that, tourists behave or conduct themselves in a certain manner. Do you think a system like that would work in a country like ours? And could the government possibly step here?
Yes. When I say tourism wardens, it's not a police. You can't cover the whole country, the whole city.
Right.
So what I'm saying is, you pick up high density tourism areas. And to give you an example, let's say you pick up Humayun's tomb in Delhi, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Right.
And you have somebody there who is authorized to enforce the law, which is the do's and don'ts, which are displayed in a tabular form on a notice board. So if I walk into the Humayun's tomb and I drink my bottle of Coke and I throw the bottle, in the lawns, I should be immediately fined, not only why I have thrown the bottle, but to pick it up and throw it in the garbage bin. And I can tell you, if you go for a walk to any of these areas, whether it is Lodi's, which are famous walking areas in Delhi, Lodi Garden, Nehru Park, Humayun's tomb, you'll find this litter. Or you'll find packets of synthetic packets of pan masala, or you'll find synthetic packets of chips and bags in which they bring their parathas, the plastic bags. You'll find them thrown all over. Why should they throw them all over? Isn't there somebody to tell them, don't do it? That is what I mean. So I don't want a tourism warden standing on Zakir Hussain Road. I want him inside the monument, controlling people who come there in high tourism density areas. So that will be a beginning. And then, so you don't need a full police force. And that's why I use the word wardens. I didn't call it tourism police.
Right. So of course, the industry.
By the way, they can also be trained to be, informative guides.
Right. Absolutely. Right. So the industry.
Please go ahead.
Go ahead. No, sir. Please go ahead.
No. If somebody asks a warden a question on the monument, he should be able to answer it. So it's a multitasking sort of a thing. You are helpful and yet you are firm.
Right. So these ideas are there. So I think the government can really, start with the implementation. Like you mentioned that, even Responsible Tourism Society already has, such healthy practices in place. So it's the implementation on the ground that needs more work right now, you would say?
Well, we have these practices are what we are trying to promote. The implementation has to be done by the authorities, by the state governments, by the heads of organizations. And our membership is obviously following, all these best practices that we are spreading. But this has to percolate to the industry, and for that only the ministry and the government can help us. The state governments can help us. That is why we've signed an MOU with the Ministry of Tourism and the United Nations Environment Program to work together to implement these things. And lot of interest, lot of progress has taken place. And my suggestion about setting up a CEOs forum is because it is only through, any change has to be brought from top downwards. Yes, you've got to start educating downward, but if the CEO of companies have desire that, yes, this is the way we will proceed and contribute towards the environment and sustainability, then they'll implement this. They'll have people follow down the line. Right. So that's...
Yeah. So during the pandemic, the concept of homestays became very popular because, people couldn't travel outside the country and sometimes not even, to different cities. So, the concept of homestays and resorts wherein, the local community is involved and, these eco resorts, this became quite popular. What are your views on this trend?
Yes, it's we have been actively promoting this trend because homestays is one way of ensuring sustainability. The beneficiary is the local community, and it is not only beneficiary in terms of that you are, for your overnight stay you are paying the owner for the 1 or 2 rooms that he or she has, but you are also consuming home food, local cuisine. You are being exposed to local way of living. You are being exposed to local art, handicraft, etc. So, homestays are a very essential pillar in the whole concept of sustainable tourism, and they have been very successful in some areas. For example, Ladakh is one area where homestays have been very, very, very successful. The only thing about homestays is, we need to have each state government, wherever they have homestays, they need to have this very, very clearly laid down principle on following hygiene principles, hygiene and sanitation. And so you need to educate the homeowners. You need to lay down certain principles and you need to guide them through the process. because they need to be made aware of the needs of the traveler. So I think by and large, homestays are proceeding well, and there is an interest. And I think in times to come, homestays will become very, very popular. Little bit of the aspect of hygiene and comfort needs to be I won't use the word enforced, but it needs to be implemented through educative processes.
Right. So we've discussed quite a lot. You mentioned about the CEOs forum. You also mentioned, the role that the government can play. What role can citizens play in, furthering sustainable tourism and responsible tourism? How do we get, the common people, the citizens involved in this process? How do they embrace sustainable tourism? Can there be a process wherein they become the stakeholders and maybe the decision makers, so that there is a sense of ownership and they work towards furthering sustainable tourism in the country?
I can only I can only add that once there is a realization amongst citizens, number one, the traveling citizen, see, the stakeholder, the service provider can be taught, can be sensitized through workshops, etc., etc. The common citizen, the common man has to be, when I say common citizen, I'm the normal citizen, has to be sensitized, number one, through media, and number two, for children, some kind of education, compulsory education, and for adults, through sort of, I would say enforcement. I mean, which I referred to earlier.
Right.
But in a country like ours, the word enforcement should not be misconstrued. You cannot implement in a democracy, a rule of law, through very tough means.
Right.
It's a mixture of education, and telling them what are the negative impacts if they don't do what they are being asked to do. I think exposure to the negative impact of non-adherence to these basic principles will be a better way of exposing the common man, of educating the common man.
Certainly, sir. I think these are some excellent ideas, excellent thoughts. So, sir, I just wanted to check with you. You said in the beginning that, the unorganized sector, sometimes there isn't enough awareness, right? So they don't feel the need to, conduct themselves in a certain manner. And while big chains may be implementing these practices, how do you change things in the unorganized sector? Is your society also engaging with these stakeholders?
Absolutely. We have been after the methodology is to work closely with the states. It is the state government that has to implement the change in their unorganized sector. Workshops, the first point I told you was workshops. What we need to do is to conduct workshops along with the state, where they invite the stakeholders in the unorganized sector to come and sit with us for a day and understand what they need to do. And once they have understood what they need to do, it is not through one workshop. It will have to be several workshops to be conducted in every state, in all high density tourism areas. If you take Uttarakhand, we'll have to do in Nepal district, in Nainital district. We will have to do in Mussoorie district. We'll have to do in Almora district. So like that, you organize these workshops for the informal sector in different regions in a state. Having said that, this has to be backed up with a very clearly laid down code of conduct. Not in very complicated terms, but in simple terms. Separate your plastic with your wet garbage. Keep this thing clean. Put this here, put this there, like that. So lay down a very small list of do's and don'ts for the unorganized sector who are normally uneducated also. And then slowly, the implementation process will be through number one, workshops, and then laying down a process and inspecting them. That's why I use the word, there should be some form of tabulation, certification, and then inspection of these eateries and guest houses, etc.
Right, sir. No, I think that's excellent advice, and I hope we can get the government and all stakeholders to implement some of it. So thank you so much for your time. This was an excellent session. Towards the last, any parting advice for the common tourist, somebody who's maybe visiting a tourist place? What is the best manner in which they can sort of conduct themselves and contribute towards sustainable tourism?
Yeah. Take your garbage back home, put it in the right place in the car and take it back. If you are going to a destination where there is no collection system, don't leave it there. And number two, leave a destination cleaner than when you went there.
Absolutely. I think that's excellent advice. And on this note, maybe we can conclude the session. Thank you so much, sir. Thanks for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the final session of the 2-day-long Hindustan Times Tourism Conclave 2022. It is my pleasure today to welcome a hotelier who is as reticent as he is expansive. Mr. Nakul Anand, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jamal.
Mr. Anand, the entire industry knows how you love to fly under the radar. You're constantly passing credit on to your contemporaries. Anil Chadda does this, Atul Bhalla is responsible for that, and Richa Sharma is the best at everything. But the truth is that your painstakingly exacting eye is what has led ITC Hotels into a sphere of luxury that was once questioned, but today sets standards and breaks new ground. Mr. Anand, today we're going to shine the spotlight where it deserves to be placed. We are going to talk about ITC Hotels and how it's created a unique niche for itself in the world of luxury, then take a broad look at the challenges that COVID-19 placed on the hospitality industry as a whole, and focus on the times ahead.
Look forward.
But before we start, I must offer you my congratulations. For just as we seem to be emerging from the shadows of the pandemic, you've gone ahead and launched a brand new hotel, the ITC Narmada in Ahmedabad. This weekend, HT Brunch, the magazine I edit, called it a hotel so elegant and spectacular, it almost seems too luxurious and grand for Ahmedabad. You spent 600 crores to build it, and from what we hear, it's everything that the current optimism of Gujarat deserves. Congratulations again. My first question to you is something that you will enjoy answering. Tell us about the ITC Narmada, the newest jewel in your crown.
Jamal, the best part about the ITC Narmada, and I say that this is really, come after a span, if you really look at it, our first hotel that ITC Hotels opened, or Welcome Group opened when we got into the hotel business, was that time called Welcome Group, the Welcome Group Chola Sheraton, right? That was in Chennai, right? That was in 75. Fast forward 2022, we are opening the Narmada in Ahmedabad. What is so brilliant about this company, and this is what I say, that we have a lot of flexibility to work within well-defined parameters. But this company saw a vision in 1975 before it laid the ground for its first hotel, or 73, and said all our hotels will be rooted in the soil. So in 75, we opened Chola in Chennai, that was rooted in the soil. Go on, 76, Mughal, where else but in Agra. 77, ITC Maurya, where else but in Delhi. Story goes on. The British influence in Bangalore, so the ITC Windsor, ITC Maratha, Grand Central, because it was in the center of the mills, etc. ITC Shonar, for an obvious reason, and so on and so forth. And finally, if you look at it, ITC Narmada, a fitting tribute to the Gujarat and what it deserves, etc. So what I'm really fascinated by is the vision of this company, how people have changed, chairmen have changed, presidents have changed, CEOs have changed, but we've been very consistent in our vision. We defined it at that time as nobody gives you India like we do. Our hotels will not be matchbox. Each one will be rooted in the soil and give you an experience, right? Be it by way of cuisine, be it by way of decor, be it by way of architecture, be it by way of uniforms, right? And that's exactly what we've done. So that's what I'm proud about, that we've been able to maintain the very route that ITC had defined at the inception, and yet being able to modernize, contemporize, etc. within. So there is a common thread that runs, and yet it hasn't kept us back from advancing.
So we can see that you're again passing on the credit to some great visionary who put the entire idea together and not taking credit. We do know that a lot of the credit goes to you, Mr. Anand. Before we move on, I still want to know a little more about the ITC Narmada. What is the most Gujarati thing about ITC Narmada?
I think is the way that the structure has been defined, right? Which is perhaps absolutely unique, and you've got to go and experience it. You find in the interiors, a lot of every corner of it reflects some part of Gujarat, etc. We've done a lot of work on Gujarati cuisine. The uniforms are Gujarati, etc. So you really feel Gujarat, right? Right, whether it's the steps that are famous for Gujarat, or whether it is the arches, etc. Every part of it that you see is from Gujarat in it, and that's really what fascinates me about that hotel. Again, and it's a small plot. It's a 2-acre plot, and a very efficiently built hotel. It has 300 rooms on 2 acres.
It sounds absolutely fantastic, Mr. Anand. But you know, such hotels do not get launched without the support of your loyal customers and the sincerity of your teams. Can you tell us in a nutshell a little about the employee welfare schemes that you put in place during the uncertain times of COVID in order to keep the faith of your employees going strong?
Yeah. You know, I think that one of the things I learned, right, as a management trainee, and it's obvious common sense, but I think it needs to be reiterated. As you know, I began my career as a management trainee in ITC. And the first thing we are taught is that people, be it the customer or be it the associate, are both part of the product. So the customer sitting next to you, depending on how he's dressed, etc., reflects the personality of the hotel. Am I right? What sort of customer? So he's also part of your product. More importantly, just as there is the physical product, the employee is a very large part of your product. Therefore, in our success lies their success. There are studies that go back 20 years, 25 years, and I'm an extensive reader. I remember this very clear Harvard Business Review study where it looked at, they did a research and put in a whole lot of steps to increase the employee satisfaction index. And they arrived at a formula that an X amount of raise in employee satisfaction index led to X plus Y in guest satisfaction index, which led to X plus Y plus Z in profits, right? So a very clear relation. But that apart, I think ITC, apart from being a part of the product, ITC is always cared for its customers. I'm a product. I've been in ITC 43 years, etc., and loved every moment of it. So I think that the moment the crisis came, and as the World Tourism Organization has said, that the first statistics on tourism were written in 1950, and since then there's never been a crisis that bad. We don't know anything before that, right? Because there were no. So moment we realized that we were in a crisis, we realized we were able to anticipate sort of the intensity of the crisis well before the lockdown came. A week before, we had sort of shut down offices, moved people work from home, used the week before the lockdown to make people comfortable in their home, provide them with necessary computers, networks, Wi-Fi, whatever they wanted, etc. But that's one part of it, that work must go on, etc. Number of steps that we took, and I'm very proud of what the team did. I remember staying up with the team at midnight, at 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. We've got one bed at Medanta. We managed 2 in this place. We managed that, but we don't have an ambulance. But the ambulance needs an oxygen. Okay, can we take an oxygen cylinder or a ventilator from our guest house, put it in the ambulance, shift it? That's the sort of work that all my colleagues were up to all night, just to make sure that our associates are comfortable, their families are comfortable. Amongst other measures, we tied up at the companies except vaccination camps. So we didn't want. So I was part of a task force that was set up by the chairman, Mr. Sanjeev Puri, to look at procurement of vaccination about 2 months before the vaccination even came, or 3 months before the vaccination came, that Is it possible for corporates to buy vaccination? And within us, can we prioritize who needs the vaccination, both from a country's point of view, company's point of view, family point of view, right? In some families, it's the elderly people who may require it, etc. Set up that, negotiated with various people. Camps were held, and I think we were amongst the first company to complete vaccination of almost everybody, and ours included the immediate family also. Awareness sessions through healthcare experts. We had healthcare experts, and every second day they were either broadcasts or podcasts or whatever they were in conveying or communicating to people. Conversations to connect. There were platforms created C2C. There was loneliness setting in, how people could connect with each other. We paid salaries before time. We made sure that, there was no question of people needed money, people needed for medical reasons, people needed for their families, people needed to travel, etc. In addition to physical health, we brought in consultants to look at the mental health of people. Not easy to work from home, especially in a hotel industry where you've been 18 hours a day on your feet and you're working from home. Enhanced communication. There were SMS blasts to people, some to make them happy, some jokes, some anecdotes, some things that is happening. COVID advisories. Didn't want people, so we had a whole team of 4 or 5 people sitting and putting together how would you sum up what has happened today? Are we going up? Are we going down? There were rumors. There was, somebody would say, deaths are so much, this is happening there. We would get 8 or 10 people to sum up. So we give you in a capsule form what is the exact status, etc. And this was shot out to all employees. We had a 24/7 COVID command center, which was directly reporting to Anil and me, and anything out of the ordinary, and we would ring up any time of the day, like we would normally ring up a hotel on a busy day and check what is happening. We would ring up the COVID command center. They would define parameters, how many cases, which hotels, which cities, how many hospitalized, how many critical, how many there, any hospital beds pending. We had the complete data available. At times, we would come here and realize that we have to be in the COVID command center ourselves. Associates and employees who went out of the way, they were recognized to help colleagues and to help society at large. We began, so we don't forget, we began from the command center to give out wow cards, right? And all these were collected together. Only last weekend, we had the Spotlight Awards, where we honored all those people who'd gone out of the way, either to help a fellow associate or to help society. Amongst many other things, realizing that people are restless at home. Never does a hotel come to a standstill. We conducted thousands of online courses. So for everybody, there was a course. There was a double benefit in it, right? It's on one hand, the associate was kept busy, right? On the other hand, it was a great opportunity to use this downturn to enhance knowledge of people. And we use subjects that you normally would not, digital marketing for everybody, right? All of us, times have changed and some of us belong to the old school, etc. What is the metaverse? And yet, at the same time, back to basics, right? Going all the way back to food and beverages, I would have learned 13 courses or 14 courses of a French menu, the mines, this, that. So people could spend 6 and there was no compulsion, right? All these courses were made available to people. Their time, their will, their agenda, their scope, this is available to you if you want. So these are just some of the measures that I can mention. But I think at the end of it, I remember going to a hotel with Anil about a month back, and I got a call that the whole union wants to come and see you. And one of the hotels that has we've sort of had few problems, not too many, etc. So I immediately summoned the area manager and the GM, and I was in that hotel and said that, is there a problem? Is there something pending with these people? They said no, but I said, then in any case, we have to meet them. So Anil, myself, and Atul was there, and the area manager. And all the union said, we just came to thank you and the company. We came to thank you for ITC for what you all did for us. We are absolutely, we don't know what to say. Words can't be said. Now, coming from the union of, who are supposed to do the opposite, at least for optics' sake, in public to thank us and thank ITC, not me, thank ITC at large, to say, yes. I think was the biggest testament that we could have that our efforts have not gone to vain.
So it's suitably established, Mr. Anand, that I have never seen any hotel group care about its employees as the ITC does, and it shows. Let's now focus a little bit on the other side of the coin, the loyalty of your customers. Now, a little funny story. I remember visiting the ITC Grand Maratha just as things began to open up, and I saw toothpicks placed in the elevators. the foodie that I am, and given how much I love Indian food, my first thought was that the hotel had placed kebabs for guests in the elevators. Of course, the toothpicks were meant to press the elevator buttons without actually touching them. There were also foot pedals outside to summon the lifts. How hard did you have to work to win back the trust of your guests and make them come back to the hotel again?
So a couple of things, I think first of all, we had to come up with something credible, right? And times have changed now. We had to come, moments of truth became moments of trust, right? And a moment of truth would be a moment of trust. It is trust that is going to get the customer back. And we had broken up our entire strategies, and we broke ourselves into 3 teams when this happened. One was the survival team. The survival team is doing what exactly I told you, looking after the associates, right? Looking at what are the sort of needs that are required, how to keep the hotel going, should the AC be on or off, otherwise the hotel will smell when you open it, thousands of things like this. Then there was a revival team. A revival team was working that how can we bring forward the business? How can we give confidence to the customer that we are a safe hotel, right? And then there was the thrival team, that once we begin to thrive, how are we going to take it? So there were 3 very clear teams that were working on 3 different aspects of this. The revival team, of course, was looking at what we call the We Assure program. The We Assure program was where I said we have to convert moments of truth to moments of trust. Now, we didn't only have to fight germs here, but we had to fight perceptions here, right? We had to remove perceptions. To give you a few examples, that in our industry, cleanliness was always invisible. It was at the back of the house. But now we had to create theaters of cleanliness, that people come up in front, that they can see that things are being cleaned, etc. But that put aside, we again had a team of people, and no credit to us. We searched the globe. Luckily, the internet is a global brain available today. We had the time, our hotels were closed. We looked at every small hotel in the world and what we could pick up and what practice. Somebody had a mask. Somebody, because the mask was covered, had the picture of the person here. Somebody would have a badge, I've been vaccinated. Somebody had an elevator. But all these ideas were picked up. They were not necessarily created by us, some were, etc. We chose the best of these ideas together and brought together a what We Assure program. This program, in turn, was certified by DMV, the world's first program of its kind to be certified, whether it was how a room is made, how room service will function, how associates will come in, what are the checks that are done, what are the sterilization measures, what are the chemicals that are used, etc. It defined an entire gamut. And it's, if I may take leave of modesty, one of the best read modules I've done. And we would work, all of us would be on Zoom calls from 7 in the morning till midnight, 1 o'clock, first gathering information, connecting, discussing, putting it together, implementing, training people. And it went training 8,000 people, because when people began to come back, right, you've got to put your word, right? And they've got to deliver what you have promised. And so this We Assure program, I think, and of course, it went public. People tweeted about it. People came. Influencers like yourselves were invited also to come and see and sample it for yourself. Began to give assurance to people that we are safe. Every room next to you would be kept vacant. Your room is sealed till you enter. We will not service the room while you're present. Our staff is vaccinated. Just about everything. I don't like to call it social distancing, because we are in the business of bringing society together, and not, I call it safe distancing. So safe distancing measures were kept all along in dining tables. Coffee shops moved to banquet halls so that you could have larger coffee shops for people to have breakfast. So hosts of men, and every day somebody from the team, irrespective of the level he was, would sort of come up with an idea. There was a process to funnel this idea to a central pair, and where it was discussed, and all these incorporated to create what was the We Assure program. In sum, I'd like to say that we were very quick in reassuring the customer or our guests that we are ready to welcome them back, and that their safety is of our concern. And very few, I don't remember of a case where a person comes and says that I stayed in your hotel and because of you that I ended up getting, I don't remember such a case at all. Right.
And what a splendid job you did, Mr. Anand, because I remember you becoming suddenly the envy of every hotelier in town just as the first wave of COVID subsided. Your ITC Grand Bharat just outside Gurgaon filled up to record numbers. Room rates went through the roofs, and I remember your inventory was sold out. What was the secret of that magic?
interesting that you are half an hour away from Gurgaon, you're 1 hour away from Delhi, right? B, you don't need to go through the 3 hours or 4 hours of the airport this side and 4 hours of the airport that side. C, the safety of an aircraft or the airport for that matter, right? Here you drive in your own car. D, 400 acres of land or 350 acres of land. Each house is independent. 5, the assurance that the VShore program gave you, right, that you would be safe. Now here, you're not walking in the lobby. There's no lobby. You're literally walking in on the golf course. Or you're walking on the greens, etc. So no secret. People wanted to get away. You're fed up of staying at home. This was the greatest getaway you could get away. There's no airfare. There's no queuing up at airlines or airports, etc., which were high contaminators, high spreaders of the COVID, etc. So no secret. And Delhi is only one part of it. Delhi and Gurgaon are one part of it. Look at the feeder market around Delhi within 5 hours. Jalandhar, Ludhiana, Chandigarh, and Amritsar, Lucknow, Kanpur, and Agra. Right? Delhi is surrounded. Delhi's very few people realize that Delhi is very, very well located. Right? And over the years, credit to our government, highways have substantially improved. Right? So when a person from Jalandhar who would normally have gone to Chandigarh and taken a flight overseas drove down here, he realized that I've never been in India. The roads are so brilliant, etc. And so I think that, of course, Gan Bharat was a success for that reason. It was a getaway. It was isolated. It was just ideal to sort of isolate and yet be connected, as I call it. Right? You could do both of it: family getaway, break the monotony, etc., etc. But I think that the biggest gain that the country will have from COVID is that something we've been harping about for years, that many people have today begun to love their country more than they ever loved it before. We've always believed that this country has the greatest assets to offer, right? And I sent a team of people to one of our hotels for New Year, and this is a group of people that would always go abroad. Now, they would call me, so I got a call from them at 11 o'clock at night, and they said, "We're sitting in this lovely place in Kashmir, right? It's more beautiful than Switzerland. We spent 1/20th of the airfare to come. There's still 1 hour to go for dinner, right? If I was overseas, I would have had to have my dinner by 7 because I don't think I'll get anything after it. I can get up at 10 and still get a masala dosa in the morning and nobody will tell me breakfast is closed, right?" And he says, "I'm 1 hour away from Delhi." He says, "Why haven't I ever done this for 40 years? Now, there are many such people. My family and I didn't. We normally go abroad, went to Jaipur, took a 7-seater, 8-seater, we are a large family, drove to Ranthambore, right? Drove back and drove through Rajasthan in a 7 or an 8-seater hired bus. Fantastic roads. We realized the importance of India. And wayside amenities everywhere, something you and I have always been worried about. Would there be toilets for the ladies, etc.? We are a changed country and people have experienced it. So if India had 11 million inbound, we had 26 million outbound. My guess is we managed to stop at least half of them from going out and seeing India because there's so much more to see in it.
Such a positive way of looking at it. But you're right. It was a discovery of India for a lot of Indian travelers. COVID was, of course, trying for every industry. If I were to ask you to explain broadly its impact on hospitality in India, how would you describe it?
The impact of, so the impact of COVID, we are an industry that was the first affected. I don't think any other industry. And on the eve of every hotel opening, and I've been involved in the opening of about 20 hotels, I'm sitting with the team and saying, this is the day. From tomorrow, we'll never close, right? Because when you open a hotel, it never closes. It's a 24/7. Here, life came to a standstill. Hotels were closed, etc., etc. So, but I think that the industry rose to the occasion very fast. In our particular case, as I told you, we had the survival, revival, and the thrival, etc. Began to create new avenues for revenue. We had a quotation which I keep telling my team, and somewhere that I read it, that the lion doesn't eat grass for want of game in the jungle, right? So we are not going to wait. So we are going to create new revenue streams. That's where we began to look at gourmet deliveries, right? How could we become delivery? Cloud kitchens, we had it all. Why should others create it? Hoteliers are this thing in it. Look, use that opportunity to think of, and as they say that in every adversity there's an opportunity, and I think we created our own. Whether it is costs, we were able to streamline costs and give us a better tomorrow as we go ahead. We created new revenue streams in terms of staycations, daycations, sleepcations, right, friendcations, right, and all. Now, there was a time that, if I was to give you rough statistics of some, in a particular, if the number of non-contracted business, right, if the non-contracted business was say about 100 rooms a day, right, now non-contracted is that I'm not corporate and so I don't have an agreement with you. I decide to go on a holiday, or I'm a very small company and I decide, so I don't have a contract with you. Now, non-contracted business, if it was 100 rooms a day, during the pandemic, it became 800 rooms a day. So you created a demand, a lot of it, again, as I told you, staycations, sleepcations, vacations, whatever you want to call it, etc. Right? So the industry rose to it, and I think we did. A lot of this is, we may have recovered. The pandemic may, I hopefully, inshallah, be behind us, but they slipped back a little, but it's still, we've created a very large segment. So I think, as I told you again, going back to domestic travel and local city travel, people in the same city realize that they can take a break. They don't have to travel for 3 days, check into a hotel. It's a big change from home. I don't have to cook. I don't worry. Maid aayi, wo aayi, doodh aaya, ye aaya, ani aaya. You don't have to worry about it, right? So we've created new segments of the market. So I think the hotel industry has responded very, very well. I think, but from a customer point of view, I think that the biggest realization that was that, and this is where service is going to change substantially, and many of us, and all of us, I'm sure, in the industry were the first to change it. Pre-pandemic, right, it was believed that I'm healthy if I'm not sick. Right? Post-pandemic, it's all about immunity. Did I get it? If I didn't get it, my immunity was strong. If I get it, was it mild because my immunity was strong? Or if I got it, was it very severe because my immunity was not strong? So it's all about the number one thing. There's no point in having anything else in life if your health is not right. So health has moved to number one. Now, connected with health is everything else, right? To get my immunity up, if I want to be healthy, right? Number one, I can't be healthy in a society that's not healthy. Sustainability becomes important, right? There are cases, and I've read of 2 cases, I think one of Cornell and one Harvard or somebody else, where very clearly they have said that in various American cities where they analyzed that the intensity of the COVID infection was directly proportional to the pollution of that city. Right? So if you were in a city that was a little more relatively, none of those cities are highly polluted, right? The intensity of your COVID was more. Now, cut that long story short, but to say that very clearly people have realized that sustainable, I cannot be well in an environment that is not well, and therefore sustainability has moved to the forefront of everything else. But what does it affect? It affects the internal air quality, the quality that I breathe there, amongst many other things, right? In fact, the last survey that I know, and this is not a global survey, this is a survey in India, of course, amongst a certain income group, where 75% of the people will only stay in hotels, right, that are sustainable hotels, etc. I think we were fortunate enough to sort of look at sustainability, and we looked at beyond sustainability. We looked at something called responsible luxury, and there was a choice that we had to take. We were not a luxury chain. We were the Welcome Group. We were rebranding to Luxury Collection. ITC was always green, and we had a choice that should we be luxury or should we be green. Now our DNA, from where we came, our pedigree ITC was, if we didn't see green, we saw red. Right, so we said that, what do we do? And at that time, it was believed that luxury and green could never go together. If you want to be green, you have to throttle your water. You don't change your bed sheet for 3 days, or you don't change your 4 days. Right? You sleep. You don't have a shower bath. Right? You don't change your towels. You sleep at 24 degrees. Your AC is switched off when you go off, so you suffer for half an hour. When you come back, this was all. So here was a question again. No credit to me, but the team and I sat down and we said that should we be luxury or should we be responsible? We said, no, we'll take the path less traveled. And we combined the two and we created the word responsible luxury, which encompasses everything, your sleep, your health, what you eat, what you drink, among sustainability, etc. Again, the happiest day of our lives was ITC Gardenia was being built, right? So it became a platinum hotel, which was sustainable. You can't have a better testimonial than that, etc. And on many awards was acknowledged for being the most luxurious hotel in the country when it opened. So there, it proved what we wanted to do, that it's possible to combine luxury and responsibility, and the two can coexist.
This Anand, sustainability and how ITC put the focus on responsible luxury much before everyone else, much before it became a millennial buzzword, was one of my questions. But since you've addressed it, I'm going to just ask you very briefly, do you feel vindicated? There was a time, like you yourself said right now, luxury and green living or taking care of the planet didn't really go hand in hand. But everyone knows today that anything luxury today must also be responsible towards the planet. Do you feel vindicated? Very briefly.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that I think the proof of the pudding also lies in, and sometimes management teaches you that what gets measured gets managed. So we converted this into a science and now began to measure our carbon footprint and to see what it is. On one hand, you're measuring your TripAdvisor score, etc., which are your luxury scores or your relative quality scores. And we began, then you measure your profitability scores, but we have one more measure, which we measure our carbon footprint, etc. Interestingly, that according to the Paris Agreement in 2030, right, in the Paris Agreement COP21, the hotel industry had said that they would reduce carbon emissions by 66% on the baseline of 2010 by 2030 and by 90% by 2050, right? ITC Hotels is already exceeded the 2030 targets, right? So we are already below that and we are well on our way to achieving a 90% target, right? In terms of, it can be measured in terms of carbon emission per overnight stay of a guest, or it can be measured in carbon emission per square meter of property that you own. So on both the parameters, they are already well ahead of what the industry standards are, etc. So I think that we managed to achieve what we have without compromising the luxury of the guest. So my message to the guest is come, splurge, enjoy yourself, bask in the luxury of ITC hotels, and yet you will leave with the carbon footprint, because back end, there is a lot working for you. The energy is coming from renewable sources. The water is being water harvested, being recycled. Waste is 100% recycled. We don't use plastic at all. We're a zero plastic this thing. Food comes from within 40, 50, 60 kilometer radius, etc. That's another interesting. So when we were looking at responsible luxury, we said that one of the things was on, which most people don't realize, is that food has a very large carbon footprint when it travels. Right? An amazing carbon footprint when it travels. So we came up with something called local love. Now, local love is that in every city, there is some local favorites. In Calcutta, it's the Nizam's Kati Kebab or the Puchka or the Matya Bhuj Biryani. In Bombay, it's the Bada Pav. Right? In Delhi, it would be perhaps the Chana Bhatura or something like that. So we came across and we had food Sherpas who went out and searched for the best that there was in every city, and sort of tried to benchmark that. You can never benchmark a person who only does that job. And hats off to them because they've been doing it for generations. But they became sort of our role model and we benchmark it. So in every 10 card, in every coffee shop, we have the local word menu. Now, what has this done? And this is exactly what I think is what we had in mind when we did responsible luxury. Now, when you have this local love menu, a person who comes to Calcutta says, hey, I haven't had a kati kebab for a long time. I can't go to the streets because I'm a little beyond that now, I don't know whether my stomach will take it or not, but I've grown up on it or I love it. Or that's Calcutta. I want to experience that dab chingdi and go back, which I may not, because I'm only here for one day and could I have experience. So yes, 65 to 70 people begin to order the local love. What is the end result of this? Again, I told you, what gets measured gets managed, right? 60% of the people that have eaten that, right, have had, they say, the best meal that they've had, right? Because the great experience. They've eaten Calcutta in Calcutta, eaten Bori biryani in Bombay or whatever it is, etc. But most importantly and subtly, had he not seen the local love, perhaps he would have ordered a smoked salmon, which had traveled from 7,000 miles or 10,000 miles and left a carbon footprint. When we measured it, the procurement, the footprint of our purchase as a result of local love has reduced by 60 kilometers. So here is an ideal example: luxury, experience, and so it's possible for the two to coexist. You just have to think it through.
Absolutely
We are
fantastic.
still not even halfway where we'd like to be, etc.
Yeah.
Every day we learn. Remember, life never stops teaching, so we never stop learning, right? And every day we pick up from our guests, we pick up from somebody, and every day we come, hey, why didn't we do this? We still have plastic bottles in the room. The first to introduce the Shekar, the Shunya Aqua, and so on and so forth, and name it. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on, and zero waste.
Well, we can see your pride. It's palpable, and responsible luxury is definitely a feather in ITC Hotels' cap, and not just in India, but the world over. Something we're extremely proud of. And I talk to my hotelier friends in other parts of the world about how ITC does it. Fantastic, and many congratulations for that. Before we end, let's talk a little about luxury. With customer preferences, Mr. Anand, organized and recorded, butlers, food sherpas, turn-down services. Sometimes I think Indian standards of luxury today surpass those in other parts of the world. Do you think hotels in India spoil you and make it impossible for you to enjoy a perfectly acceptable hotel where the standard of service is not as dialed up?
Absolutely. I think that we pride ourselves that, and it goes back to Atiti Devo Bhava, and it's part of our culture, and you and I practice it at our homes. So at work even more. I mean, a guest at home, irrespective of whom it may be, is treated like God, and so it's again part of our DNA. It's part of our orientation. No, I don't think so. There was a time that I, as a Indian hotelier, and I'm not wearing my ITC cap, as an Indian hotelier, was most concerned that now with this service that is sort of governed by distancing and disinfecting, etc., not being able to come close, contactless service, are we going to lose our edge, etc., right? And thought about it that that if everything becomes a machine, and you check in on a machine, check out on a machine, you don't meet. So where is the human interaction? Are we going to lose our edge, etc.? So then I came across with this, that you don't touch the guest, you touch the heart, right? And let me give you an ideal example of it. And which better example than coming back to Mother India, that you can shake hands and you can do namaste. The namaste is just as warm and touches the heart even more than a shake hands, right? So everything has an answer to it, etc. We've now got to find ways to touch the heart of our guests, right? And not physically touch the guest as such, and see how we can do it. And nobody better than the Indian hotelier to do that.
Finally, Mr. Anand, what is the biggest lesson COVID has taught the luxury and hospitality industry? One that we must never forget.
I think to me the biggest one has come that always be ready for change, right? Always be ready, and it comes in there that as Lennon said, that there are decades when nothing happens, and there are weeks when decades happen, right? And this is exactly what happened here. And I think that we had to be swift, we had to be nimble. There was times of no revenue, but we had to look at. And to me, I think the biggest learning was while we were doing all this, right? One eye on the microscope, the other on the telescope, right? The microscope was what's happening to your people, what's happening to the costs, how you can cut them down, and the telescope, what's going to happen in the future. Service is going to be redefined, low touch service, hotels are going to be redefined, sustainability is going to take a high, right? You can't do this A, B, C, D, E, F, right? And so on and so forth. You're going to come into a new hoteliering. So I think it was important that you didn't just have to focus on this, the microscope and the periscope or telescope both together.
Mr. Anand, what an insightful conversation. We may not say it often, and you're definitely too humble to acknowledge it yourself, but all of us are extremely proud of the high standards of luxury ITC puts out, hotel after hotel, visit after visit, day after day. There's a freshness in its approach, and just like your employees feel like they're part of a family, let me tell you, your guests feel it too. Thank you for setting the bar so high, and thank you for your time and this conversation.
I'm delighted to hear that. Lovely talking to you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the entire team at the Hindustan Times, thank you for participating in the HT Tourism Summit 2022. We look forward to seeing you again next year. Good afternoon and namaste.
Ayodhya, the land of Lord Rama's birth. The axis holding the whole earth, where the devotees bow in awe at the sight of the magnificent Ramlala. Hanuman Garhi is the home to Hanuman, the most adored devotee of Rama. Witness the divine palace of Janki Mata and Maharaj Dashrath, where Sitaram is the only mantra. Where Saryu embraces the Lord and the natives imbibe Tulsi's poetry. Where the Ram Bhakts arrive in hordes and witness Diwali when the stars descend on the land. Where the devotees of all ages attain a bliss. And an echo constantly rebounds. Where Rama adorns whatever you see, and Rama resides in what you can't see. Come all seekers, come all believers, find what you are looking for there is just one address. It is here in Uttar Pradesh.